Some athletes go down in history thanks to the records they have broken. Others, although sometimes less famous, have pushed the limits of our perception of sport. Earl Lloyd, first black player in NBA history. Dick Fosbury, inventor of the Fosbury Flop and first jumper of the modern era. Judith Polgar, the only woman to date to have reached the candidates tournament to become world chess champion. In this edition of Stories Behind the Numbers, we are going to take a look at two fighters who, through their exceptional careers, have changed the way people view their sport. Judo is the first Eastern martial art to make its appearance at the Olympic Games. In Tokyo in 1964, 4 categories were implemented: less than 68 kilos, less than 80 kilos, more than 80 kilos, and open category. Judo, or the flexible way, is a martial art invented in 1882 by Kano Jigoro. In competition, the goal is to put the opponent off balance and throw them to the ground using different techniques. Clean throws award more points. The fighters can then go to the ground and win in 3 ways: by immobilizing the opponent, by making them yield using an arm lock, or by strangling them. At the time, only men were represented, like all Olympic fighting sports. The presence of several weight classes is far from being obvious. Indeed, the idea of judo is very different in the country in which it was born. In Japan, judo is, like sumo, a heavyweight discipline. The Zen Nihon Judo Senshiken Taikai, or All Japan Judo Championship, is an open-weight class championship held every year since 1948 and reserved to only Japanese judokas. The victor of this Japanese tradition wins the Emperor's Cup, holy grail of the judo world. The World Championships, created in 1956, separated in weight classes, and the Olympic Games are considered minor competitions in the land of the rising sun. Yamashita Yasuhiro won the Japanese competition 9 times in a row between 1977 and 86, a record. Absent from the 1980 Games due to the Japanese boycott of the Moscow Games, he won the 1984 edition after tearing his calf during the quarterfinal. Like in an 80s sport movie, Yamashita wins the semi-final and the final by bringing his opponents to the ground and immobilizing them, proof if necessary of the Japanese superiority over judo in the heavyweight class. Japan consistently wins more than half of the titles in international competitions, winning all the gold medals at the 1969 and 1973 World Championships. Global women competitions were first introduced in 1980 at the Olympic Games and at the World Championships, making it a pioneer among fighting sports. Women's wrestling became an Olympic sport in 2004, women's taekwondo in 2008, and women's boxing in 2012. Women's judo is becoming increasingly popular with the public. This is probably due to the absence of strikes, but also to the fact that physique plays a less important role in women's judo, which is therefore more technical. Women's judo then became the perfect illustration of the essence of the sport, which states that a judoka should above all use the strength of their opponent. However, the Japanese are not at the top level, as the coach of the French team stated in a 1982 interview.
Est-ce que comme dans le judo masculin, les japonaises sont redoutables?
Actuellement, elles ne sont pas redoutables pour nous, mais je crois que dans un avenir assez proche, je crois qu'elles deviendront redoutables.
Fearsome, an adjective which describes Yamaguchi Kaori perfectly. In 1984, at 20 years old, she became the first Japanese female world champion. Yamaguchi remained an exception, however. Indeed, no Japanese woman would win a world title until 1993, as we will later see. As the fighter later said in an interview, one still needed a strong character to become a female judo fighter at that time.
柔道習いたいって言いに行ったら、道場の先生が「いや女の子はちょっと」ってうちにもいないし、で男の子ばっかりだから多分続かないんじゃないのっていうふうに言われて、いやでもやれる気がしますみたいなことを言って、道場の先生に何とかお願いして入れていただいたっていうのが最初ですね。柔道に限らずどの競技もそうだと思うんですけど、態度がでかいのは強い国なんですよ。日本の女子たちはもうそうですね、居場所がないっていうか、ちょっと隅っこお借りしてよろしいでしょうかみたいな、なんかそんな感じですよ。はい。
The rise of women's sport is indeed slower in Japan compared to Western countries. In the 1964 Games, only 1 gold medal of the country's 16 was won by women during the volleyball competition. This can partially be explained by the Japanese dominance in wrestling and judo, but in comparison, 7 of the 12 Japanese gold medals of the 2012 Games were won by women. The female judo fighters of the time were pioneers. Yamaguchi's international success earned her some notoriety in Japan. The mangaka Urasawa Naoki was inspired by the young woman and created the manga Yawara, released in 1987. If Yamaguchi was Yawara's inspiration, it is another fighter, Tamura Ryoko, who will forever be associated with the manga. The woman who will later be known as Yawara-chan burst on the international scene at only 16 years old by taking the bronze medal at the 1991 World Championships. The following year, she produced a flamboyant judo in Barcelona and advanced to the final, where she faced the French Cécile Novak. Her goal, becoming the first Japanese female judo Olympic gold medalist.
日本の田村とフランスのノバクとの対戦です。
女子の最後の決勝戦です。はい。
効果を取りました。ノバク。
Surprised at the start by Novak and unable to gain the upper hand thereafter, Tamura lost and had to wait for the 1996 Games to end a 16-year lack of Olympic title for Japanese women's judo. She won the 93 and 95 World Championships and therefore logically became, at 20 years of age, the favorite of the Atlanta Games. 1996, the time when women had to fight to be accepted in a dojo, feels like another era. Tamura is the real star of the archipelago in preparation for the Games. She even becomes the flag bearer of the Japanese delegation at the opening ceremony, and is at the forefront of an advertisement for Mizuno, supplier of the Japanese national team. Unlike what is usually the case, lightweights fight at the end in 96. It is now certain Tamura will not be the first female Olympic judo champion. Emoto Yuko had won the under 61 kilograms competition 3 days earlier. Released from a certain pressure, she begins a competition that she will absolutely dominate thanks to her favorite technique, Seoi Nage, which allows her to eject opponents much taller than herself and easily advance to the final. She faces Kaisen, a 16-year-old North Korean competing in her first international tournament. None of the fighters manages to take the lead. Only 30 seconds are left, when suddenly... Ostogari from Tamura, countered by a Kostogari from Kaisen. Perfect timing. Second silver medal in a row for Tamura. The country's press is starting to talk of an Olympic curse. In Sydney in 2000, a lot of Japanese supporters crossed the Pacific to support the fighter for her third Olympic competition. The pressure does not seem to reach her, however, and it is with a childlike demeanor that she presents her lucky charm of the competition.
ですね、MD を買ったんですね、4枚好きな MD を。そしたらですね、なんとですね、合計の金額が11,111円だったんです。試合が5試合ぐらいだと思うんで、全部1本でいけたらいいなって。
The competition promises to be tough. While she wins the first rounds easily, she stumbles in the semi-final against a North Korean opponent. She only wins by decision of the judges after a poor performance. Tamura gives herself a third chance to claim Olympic glory. Unlike the 92 and 96 finals, which came to an end, the fight for the Olympic title in 2000 lasted just over 30 seconds. Tamura performs perfectly to break the curse, beating a helpless Pudetova.
やりましたね。田村の金メダルは一本勝ち。文句なしの金メダル。
Tamura becomes Olympic champion and can finally let her joy explode.
そうですね。もう先生もこの4分間死ぬ気でやれっていうアドバイスも出てましたし、私自身もやはりこの4分間のために4年間やってきましたから。まあ本当。
陽子ちゃんは10年間
金メダルっていうのを取るまで8年かかりましたから、まあ、やっとこう初恋の人となんかこうね巡り合えたような感じですね。
In 2004, Tamura Ryoko, who became Tani Ryoko after her wedding with the famous baseball player Tani Yoshimoto, puts her title back on the line. She advances easily to the final, 5 minutes away from an Olympic title. She fights the French Frédéric Jossinet, whom she will beat 7 times in total during her career. The fight is bitter, but Tamura manages to take a decisive advantage when she manages to take down the French thanks to an oichigari, a very cleanly executed technique. Impressive leg movement considering the fact that Tamura is 5 inches shorter than her opponent. This new title holds a very special meaning for her.
旦那さんとしっかりと手を振り合いましたけれども、旦那さんにどう報告しましょう。
そうですね、もう、本当にあらゆる面で応援をしてくれていたので、谷亮子としてオリンピックチャンピオンになれて嬉しく思います。
World champion in 97, 99, 2001, 2003 and 2007, her pregnancy in 2005 was the only chance left to her opponents. Many of them made the decision to fight in higher categories in fear of the 4 feet 9 inches tall fighter. The disappointments of Barcelona and Atlanta are forgotten. Yawara-chan is now unanimously regarded as the best female judoka of all time. She even becomes a playable character in several fighting video games. Women's judo became extremely popular. Hard to find a sport, let alone a martial art, where women enjoy such popularity. Yawara-chan competed in her last international competition in 2008. She lost in the semifinals and then won the bronze, a 5th medal in 5 games, one more record in addition to her 7 world titles. After retiring from the sport, she entered politics and was elected Member of Parliament in 2010. Since her retirement in 1989, Yamaguchi Kaori has held various important roles in Japanese sports and scientific institutions. No law could have led women's judo to achieve such popularity. No militant speech, no policy of equity could have brought about changes that seemed unthinkable 40 years ago. It took brave women who fought doing what they loved and who shared their passion with those who watched them. They were not fighting the patriarchy, but other brave women who were also trying to reach the top of their art. It is easy to look back to see the beneficial changes for the sport, but how can we accept changes whose consequences we cannot yet understand? The ban on certain techniques and other dubious rule changes of the past couple of years angered a lot of judo fans. We tend to react negatively because we are afraid of what can change what we love. We just want to preserve what moves us. Difficult to keep the right balance. Let us not forget too quickly that, in sports as in life, beauty is often found in the unexpected. If you liked this video of stories behind the numbers, please don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and tell us in the comments which athletes and sports you would like to see next.